I feel like when I just about had started my career, that time there were costume designers that created looks for individual actors from the point of view of their character, and yet kind of creating a sort of a fashion statement for the masses and people to follow. But the beauty of that time was...
But this was for the screen, for on-screen.
For on-screen. But at that point there was a beauty where they were specifically making it to that particular actor. I saw a lot more style coming out at that point. I saw a lot more individuality coming out at that point. Today, maybe the fact that there's so much exposure and there's international fashion available on your fingertips, I feel like some people have not been able to channel themselves more effectively than they would before, because before I think the outlets were far and few, so they had to really kind of think and feel and then kind of dress up, even if it was the way it was. I saw a lot more individuality then. Today I feel like there is just this feeling of finding yourself through fashion, which is what happened to me. And there came a point that this line somewhere got blurred, where what was happening in the movies and what was happening in the fashion industry kind of blurred. And that is the point actually I went through a metamorphosis where I discovered what is my personality, what do I actually like to do, because there's just too many various kind of influences. So I think for an actor today, what's most important is to, and also maybe our job is to play different characters. So we have the ability to change and become something every time, which is something new. But what's even more difficult is to still retain your personal character, to still retain your sense of self. And I think this is a constant quest for an actor. But I think what I have been able to do till today is make the choices I made and not be apologetic about it, because there are
a time not terribly long ago, and I think it's probably true to some degree even now, where fashion purists say Bollywood isn't cool, Bollywood isn't fashion cool, it isn't real fashion. And I mean there was a time, right, when they didn't want a film star on the runway because it would just take away the focus from the clothes. It was all about the showstopper, the clothesman should do all the talking.
It's a very Namrata question.
Well, I will admit I did do some research with her last night. What changed?
Well, you're right. I think for a very long time the supermodel was the supermodel and an actor was an actor, and they both stood their ground very firmly in their respective professions. And I think somehow we just went into, and I'll tell you something, Rajiv, we may like it or not, but I think in this country only two things really work: Bollywood and cricket, and shadis. So and Shraddh. Let me tell you, you can say that I'm following this trend and that trend, but if the Shraddh is on, dude, you're in for trouble. I can tell you that. Okay, so you can have the best collection in the world, but if it's not the time for it, no one's buying it. I think somehow the supermodel got exhausted, and then we had, I think I always say the last of the supermodels were what? Candice Pinto and Carol Gracias and that lot, and I loved working with them. I loved having them in my clothes. But I didn't get to work with the OGs, as they say. I didn't make my debut by then. But I think somewhere they got exhausted of, the runway itself got very exhausting. That same banquet, runway, same backdrop, only this LED is changing in the back, and then your clothes are coming out one after the other. I think it just got exhausting for people. I always thought fashion shows were a parallel universe you take the audience into. And somehow we stopped doing that because just the frequency of shows, the number of shows got more and more and more. And then suddenly every design house and designer started to wonder, okay, how do I grab more eyeballs? And that's where Bollywood stepped in. And then suddenly now it's also. But I think that most of the time designers are mindless about their choices in Bollywood. It's a very, who's available in what rate.
That's right.
And who will fit my clothes and who's going to have more social media followers, and I will take that person. I think that person has to be an expression of what your brand stands for. And that is lost.
So take us through the campaign that you just did with Kareena. It was a smashing campaign. Why was she the right person? What was the thought behind that? And what did it do for your business?
You know, she was the right person because nobody that I spoke to, like Tamannaah said, if you want to make the worst mistake, ask everyone. So I asked around and everyone said Kareena is not, you don't think of her as the bride. And I said, that's why Kareena will be my bride. And I am very into, I like working with actors who are also incredibly powerful human beings, who have something to say in their personal life as well. Because I think that actors' lives don't stop on cellulite. They always carry forward. They become icons. You want to live like them, dress like them, eat like them. And I want to do all of that like Kareena. She makes me aspire to wear different hats, different, just take on different roles. And with so much ease, she's so comfortable in her body. There was not one question about, shoot me from this angle. This is my better side, I look better, like nothing. It was just, I'm your muse for the day and you do with me what you want. And I think at that stage in her career, where she is, she could have very well commanded a room and said, you shoot me, I call the shots. But I think for me it was important that I like the human more than I like the actor. And that the human resonates with the people who buy my clothes. We're not a brand that is overly commercial in that sense. We've always been a little bit niche. We do things slightly off-center, like I say. And Kareena is off-center, but yet she's the center of everyone's universe somehow. So, yeah.
Lovely. Now, when did Bollywood become fashion cool?
I think it's always been. I just think that we haven't given the association between Bollywood and fashion enough credit. I don't know why they've been into parallel universes because they have such a symbiotic relationship. I don't think Bollywood can survive without beautiful clothes, and I don't think fashion should ignore Bollywood at all. Simply because movie stars can sell snow to an Eskimo, and can you imagine if Emporio Armani said, I don't want to dress Richard Gere for the Oscars or whatever, we'd have no red carpet at all, And I think now, designers have come to a point where they will do anything and everything to sort of dress a movie star, any movie star, whoever's available, whoever they can afford. But other than the red carpet and other than dressing up people for events and for Instagram, the relationship that costumes have with cinema is always cinema itself, right? So I don't think that the two can be or should be thought of as independent of each other. They're very, very interdependent, I think.
So to all of you, does fashion influence films or do films influence it?
What came first, the chicken or the egg?
I think films influence everything.
In this country at least, right?
In this country, they do, and it's probably a thing of the West where you have both sort of going hand in hand. But I think fashion somehow, and I'm talking about the current scenario and the current the boom of OTT and everything. I think fashion has become a little bit more of a front runner only because it's kind of like a mirror to society. And you can really tell what a society is feeling going through what they are going through in society, how they're feeling through the way, you see fashion brands dress women and the way you see them style people. Like we've become a lot braver. Fashion's become so brave in this country. It's no longer just about a certain look. It's much braver.
Also, it's been given credit now, which it wasn't given earlier. I think the National Award for Costume Design is not a very old thing. It's probably just 10 or 15 years old. And I think fashion was not taken seriously and costume was not taken seriously, but it's such an important part of the movement.
I think as time elapses, whichever medium is the most strongest is going to slowly and steadily change the way we consume fashion. Fashion was very much a part of Bollywood, only that we were creating it differently. And of course, the best of costume designers were exposed to fashion all over the world, and they were bringing it to us, and we didn't even know about it because we never had those books to read, we never had runway shows to watch. So how we were watching their interpretation of fashion was through movies. And then the moment technology moved and we had exposure of everything that's going on in any part of the world, slowly that kind of became together, and now it's just, it's exploded, I think. There's too much. It's really, I don't know if it's a good thing or not, and I don't know how to take yourself away from it, because it's like you love watching it as well, and you should also not watch it so you can create something of your own. So I don't know, maybe it's a good question, it's a good masala question. How do you, when you look at so many things that exist outside, how do you go back inside and create something new out of that? I mean, where do you get the inspiration from? Because as creative people, we need something, some food for thought, some food for creation.
Some silence.
Some silence.
Some blackness. No, but I think, to be honest, we're not really inventing the next pair of jeans. I'll tell you that, I'm very honest about that. Nor am I inventing the next white shirt, which everyone's going to wear. There is a template. When it comes to bridal, there's a template. When it comes to ready-to-wear, there's a template. When it comes to India, I mean, the A-line kurta is the template, whether we like it or not, And we can say fashion this and trend that and this forecast and that, but at the end of the day, the A-line kurta with the legging is the A-line kurta with the legging. It's like couture for this country. We love it, and Indians love it, and comfortable fabric, So I think it's tough to. For me, it's very hard because I'm I'm very active on social media. And I sometimes find it so hard not to be constantly influenced by something. And I think that, is this the way things are going? Then I may as well follow their lead. But then I do have a little fun. I have a little cocoon where I go away, and that's where I have my fun. And that's where I don't make any money off it, and I have my fun. So yeah.
I want to take off from something that Namrata said, and I want to ask you, Tamannaah. She said costume is such an important part of Hollywood, of film. And it's true, isn't it? I want to get your sense as an actor. The designer I mean, how much of what you're wearing, what your character's appearance is going to be, and I largely mean costume, becomes your in for understanding that person that you're going to be playing. Is costume a big part of helping you become that character? Understanding what she's going to wear, is that a great way to sort of figure out who this person is and how you want to play them?
So nowadays how I do it is I first try to figure out what I think the character is, and then I try to figure out how would this character dress. And then there are these points where we talk as much as possible to the costume designer on board that project to actually create something that is what the character we think could be, and somewhere it has to feel natural to me as well. If I'm playing that part, I have to make it my own. And I have always firmly believed the moment you walk onto a set with that costume and whatever that get-up is, I think if you get it right, I think 50% of the battle is won. And then, of course, you can enhance it with everything, your heart and soul and your blood that you put into it. But I think 50% of the battle is won if you get the look right.
So, have you done films? Do you design? Do you work on?
Listen, let's not talk about it because
Rather forgotten.
It's a bit traumatic. But I'll tell you my biggest regret in life is, and I only have one regret because I don't regret anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's I couldn't do Mr. Bhansali's Ramleela. I was offered to do costume for that, and I couldn't do it for various reasons. And it is the single greatest regret of my life. And at that time, it was meant to be, I think, Kareena and Ranveer in the lead, and we got down to it. I mean, we started thinking of let's go to Kutch and get the costumes and the fabric and this and that. But it was my greatest regret. And also I think I'll never forget that phone call. But no, I never did film after that. I don't think that I'm cut out for it, Rajiv, to be honest. I see how costume designers go through the process of a film. And I think you can either do that and have a very strong team do that, or you can run a brand in a label. And I think I'm cut out to run a brand in a label.
Tamannaah, can you talk about sort of costume in film, in modern Hindi cinema, and how that's evolved? I mean, you pointed out, and quite rightly so to me yesterday when we were chatting, that the first Indian to ever win an Oscar was Tamannaah Bhatia and you attended an exhibition of her archives recently. Can you talk about the evolution of sort of costume in Hindi cinema over the last maybe 25 years, if you like, or longer?
I think it's come into its own, in a very strong credit. It's really part of what is. I mean, Bhanu, unfortunately, I don't even know how many films she must have done, hundreds of films that she styled, and for everybody. But she was forgotten. She was pre-internet. By the time the internet came about and by social media came about, by the time the fashion industry was sort of born in India, Bhanu was retired. I think the last film was Swadesh, right? And but now I see so many people who want to style for films, like Riya Kapoor, who I'm a big fan of. I mean, she's a great producer and a director and a fabulous stylist too. She has a film coming out, and all her films sort of are so playful with their costumes as well. And I cannot imagine giving up Ramlina. I would have done it for you. I've totally taken your name. I can't. I mean, I think it's one of the most beautifully styled films, Gonzalez, Ramlina. For me, also being a fashion sort of writer, it's such an important part of a movie experience to sort of enjoy what the characters are wearing, enjoy how the film is styled. And I find myself enjoying a lot of cinema that may not be a great story in terms of conflict or resolution or whatever. But if the movie stars look good, if the actors look good, I'm happy, and I don't think it's polite to sort of tell you which these films are, but so many films today take their costumes so seriously as much as they do their cinematography or the lighting or something like that. And I think that's really integral because, I think styling a film is now a prism, costume is now a prism. It's a new way to sort of approach cinema as technically superior cinema. And I was talking to Vidhu Vinod Chopra a couple of months ago just before his amazing 12th Fail release, and we were of course talking about costume and how he styled it, and most of his characters are very, dressed as normal people are. And then there was a film that he made, one of his oldest films, I don't know if you remember it, Khamosh. It's not available digitally, but I recently saw it at a film club. And not only were the actors at the time wearing their own clothes, Tamannaah would have been very happy, but they also had their own names, like Soni Rasan plays Soni Rasan, and Shivarasmi plays Shivarasmi, and I think Amol Palekar is also himself. Of course, he's a murderer, which is unimaginable. But imagine from that to where we are today, to the glamour that costume sort of brings cinema, to the realism it sort of brings in. And I think actors today are not just, actors, they're also public figures in the age of Instagram. And Deepika Padukone is worth 500 crores, and I don't think all of that is from, her acting. A lot of it is from her campaigns. So I think looking good and dressing for the part every day, whether you're going to the gym or the airport, is such an integral part to the movie stardom today.
But is it exhausting, Tamannaah?
Well, it's exhausting if you don't enjoy it. So the idea is to start doing things that you enjoy. The moment you start enjoying, like for me, there was a phase where I wanted to dress to the airport. But then there are days I don't want to dress to the airport. There are days I want to wear just a kurta and go, and I do that. Because I feel like your mood is actually a great way to even get inspired. Because I feel like sometimes when you don't have anything in mind, sometimes you come up with something really creative. And I have many a times discovered things when I've been in a lot of constraint. And I feel like creativity comes out of constraint. where you don't have the things you need. So I actually use that as a food for whenever I want to dress up.
You know, Masaba, you're an actor as well now, and a pretty good one. Both in the show, Masaba.
I would work actors more.
What is that like? I mean, do you call the shots on what you wear when you're on screen?
Listen, that was really hard not to do. Okay, because I just feel like it was modern love. I know Masaba season 1. I remember I was like, should I be saying that cushion shouldn't be that color? Is that my department? No, it's art. And then someone screams art, you know. And then something else happens, and I'm like, wow, there's so many people just to move a cushion or whatever, you know. On the fashion piece, I did not get involved, and that's the only advice that I asked my mother for. I said, you know, is this my business? She said, no, not at all. Stay out of it. Let people do their job, you do your job. On this set, you're an actor. So I did that, and I had a great time. But I remember in season 2, I wanted to upgrade, you know, everything that we did, everything from the lighting to the set, the costume, everything was just a step up, because I don't think that season 1 was 100%, and very openly calling that out. But I remember in season 2 I said, let's just get an upgrade. And we did that, and we had a lot more fun with costumes. So a lot of even the other cast was much better dressed, and I think we learned because this was a new format. On Modern Love, I think that's the first time, and I agree with what Tamannaah said, where 50% of the job of an actor is done when you are dressed to the T, you know, for that part. And I remember in Modern Love, I was playing this girl from Thane, would you believe it? And I was supposed to have like one pair of sneakers and like loose jeans and this boy shirt on top. And my hair was in a ponytail. And I was wearing this liner, you know, that when I call it the mummy liner, you know, it's just like, it's thick and it doesn't do anything for anyone's eyes. You know, I'm into the winged liner situation. And I remember telling the director, I said, this is not me. He said, yeah, exactly, this is not you, you're not playing yourself, you're playing a character. And that's when I understood the power of how when you dress a certain way, you dress like the character, it does so much of the job that dialogue even cannot do, you know. Your body language changes, the way the chemistry with your co-star changes, everything changes. And I remember I said, can I just have a little bit of a flick? Can I just have a little bit more contouring? He said, no, you can't. You're a regular girl, you can't do all of this. So I really believe in the power of costume to do a lot of the storytelling and introduction for a character before the character can even speak a word. And it's very powerful.
Tamannaah, what happens when you're in, I don't want to use the word conflict, that's a strong word, but in disagreement, the way that you see this character might be a little bit different from the way that your director does or your costume designer does, and the disagreement is over the visual element of how this character is going to look. What tends to happen? You also bring years of experience as an actor. Is your voice heard as an actor?
I think today, yes. But what I like to do, and I love doing this with my team, and as you know, Rajiv, films will always be teamwork. Whether we like it or not, it's not one person's perspective that's being put out there. It's one person's vision, yes, but there are lots of different perspectives, energies that come together to create someone's vision. So I think today's filmmakers are a lot more aware that an actor is actually going to make that character his own. So I do have times when there is a disagreement, and whenever there is a disagreement, what I actually do is, like for example, the skin tone that I have. Recently I was supposed to do a look test for something, and they wanted me to try a warmer skin tone. Which I was very happy to explore because I've done it in films like Bahubali, I've done it in films, a Tamil film called Devi. So I've done it a bunch of times. And because I do believe one must fully transform when a character demands it. But even span of what, Bahubali, what, 7-8 years ago, you know, the way the digital film camera is capturing us today, it can literally see the pores of our skin. So if I am wearing something that's like a layer on my skin, it's going to look synthetic. It's going to look like makeup, and that's a layer between the audience and me. And that was how I felt about it. But I truly feel, because this is a teamwork, we need to make sure that everybody feels the same as we feel. So I went through the process of applying that. Then it was my director himself was like, I don't think this works. So I feel like in films, we either convince the other person or we get convinced. And when you know you're saying something that's true and strong, you stand by it and you fight for it. And yeah, and hope it. And at the end, the film should work. After all this drama that we have put through, the last thing that we're hoping is this movie and this character is liked by people. So that's the main goal, actually.
Masaba, when you're dressing an actor, it could be for public appearance, it could be for a campaign. Again, are you trying to find what in your sort of atelier suits their personality? Are you trying to get them to be a little brave? What is the push and pull when you're working with actors?
Well, I think because they're stylists for pretty much every actor today, I think it first starts with their vision of the actor that they're styling, and then you sort of go down into okay, what event are they going to, and are they going to be comfortable in this for many hours, or is this something that's just going to be a quick photo op and out, I think it really depends on that. What I do find is that sometimes there is a gap between what the stylist and the actor want, and I always go the extra mile in the way that I say, I think you should give this a shot, because an actor could be looking a certain way. Or sometimes when I'm designing a piece, just recently I was designing something and I just said, this has Alia written all over it. And I just thought of that. And I don't really dress Alia that much. So I think what happens is that you always find pieces that suit a certain personality, but there is that, first there's the stylist assistant, and then there is the stylist, and there's a brief. So I think that's how it typically works. Having said that, I think an actor does have a mind of their own. Like even with Tamannaah, every time I've had a conversation with her, she's always very clear about the color. For example, like she's very clear about what color washes her out and what makes her skin really come out in that sense. So I think they always know. Sonam is something like that as well, who really just knows exactly what she'd like to wear. But there are some people who are very, very happy to just go with what the stylist will say. But yeah, there are pieces that I see and I just think that this has this actor written all over it, and I actually sometimes just keep it away and I don't give it to anyone else because I think it will do that person justice. And if it doesn't, that's fine. But I think that, yes, every actor in our country does have a very strong personality, straight from the top all the way down. And I think that they all know their bodies so well. Even someone like Kareena really understands her body and its strengths, its weaknesses, everything, and she's very happy to be clear about that.